Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera and a very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Taib Mustafa. I'm a General Manager Cybersecurity Product and Solution, TM1. I will be your moderator today, and welcome to our exclusive webinar, first Malaysia 2020 Cyber Threat Intelligence exclusive webinar. Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri for those that still celebrating, and selamat puasa for those continuing puasa for puasa 6. Please stay with us and please stay safe wherever you are. Thank you for being with us today. It is our pleasure to welcome Encik Ahmad Taufik Omar, or Ato, where we are calling him at the TM1, CEO, EVP of TM1. And I would like also to introduce our gracious speakers and co-host for today's event. First, please welcome Tuan R.R. Muhammad Shah Nuri Muhammad Zain, CEO of NACSA, Mr. Yub Hamas, CEO of EclecticIQ, and Encik Muhammad Fazril Azhar Muhammad Fatin, CEO of Syntax Malaysia and Berhad. On behalf of TM1, I would like to thank EclecticIQ and Syntax for the collaboration and NACSA for supporting this event. Just a few things on the housekeeping. Basically, this is a very short event, a 1 hour event. So due to the time and number of audience that we are having today, I believe there will be more around 160 and above participants. We are unable to allow everyone to speak. However, feel free to ask questions at the Q&A panel on the right. We will publish and announce the relevant question and bring it to the discussion during the question and answer session. Participants also can ask technical questions, and our moderator will provide some assistance on that. If you need to step away for a moment or get disconnected, please join us back using the same link. We'll be sharing the recording of this webinar after the event to your email. Last but not least, we also will pick a lucky participant for a lucky draw token sponsored by Syntax Malaysia and Berhad. Okay. Okay, so we have just an hour event today. So let's get started. As a welcome note, I'd like to bring the attention of today's headline on cybersecurity, as I'll be sharing a few slides to start the discussion. So, managing the unknown, this is something that is very challenging phases that are facing as cybersecurity practitioners. What is alarming today is that the highest level of unknown, that we don't know exactly what's hit us. This is something that we need to manage, and we need a threat intelligence to manage it. Okay, so when we look at the study, 43% of companies in Malaysia reportedly receive more than 10,000 alerts on cybersecurity each day. And basically, the companies are aware, but only 44% were investigated. So this is something that is we need to look at. And again, if we look at how we want to manage cybersecurity, is how fast that we can respond and how fast that we can detect to respond. Okay. When we look at the cybersecurity operations, this is something, another challenges facing the industry is because the lifeblood of digital economy is data, and the heart is digital trust. So if the lifeblood of cybersecurity is visibility, the heart is always been security operations center. So this is, we need to have that visibility. A new study has revealed that 26% of companies in Malaysia said the most severe cyber breaches in 2019 has had a financial impact of USD 4.11 million, per incident. So cybersecurity related cases have spiked by a whopping of 82.5% during the MCO. So this statistic is something that we need to really study and understand. What are the issues that we are facing today in terms of the top security challenges? Similar to pandemic COVID-19, we are fighting an invisible war. So the key question for us today is to consider, is our cybersecurity strategy is aligned to our business needs and stakeholders? And what is the focus and measure of success in our cybersecurity program? Is the organization, the users and customers are aware on cybersecurity and capable to stay protected at all times, especially during these MCO times, and most of the people are working from anywhere? Do we have a full visibility of our critical IT or OT assets that enable us to detect and respond within the security, governance, regulatory compliance requirements, customer SLAs, and especially during challenging times of MCO? Do we have that visibility? Are the organizations well prepared or resilient enough to unprecedented cyber attacks and new techniques that can disrupt the business operation? So the question is how resilient we are. This is something that we like to discuss today as well. So the next question is how fast that we can detect and how fast that we can respond. If we cannot detect, we cannot do the analysis, we cannot do the mitigation and have the resolution. Based on our research and studies, with few of our research, we look at how companies, businesses in Malaysia are responding in terms of the capability to detect as well as respond. Basically, majority of us is still at level 0 and level 1. We are still reactive. We are still looking at disconnected to the network. We're still looking at unplugging the servers when there is an attack. So this is something that a question that we like to basically help the industry to move from level 1, level 2 to level 3. With that, I'd like to introduce on Cyber Defense Center, which is a CyDEC, a fully managed security services provider for Digital Malaysia. We are looking at end-to-end an integrated pane of glass where we can integrate between your device security, your network application, cloud and data security, managed security operation, managed detection and response with your digital exposure, and integrated risk management. Okay, let's move on. I would like to call upon our CEO and EVP, Encik Ahmad Taufik Omar, our Chief Executive Officer, to give a few words. So please welcome and Encik Ahmad Taufik Omar, Chief Executive Officer, Executive Vice President of TM1. So please, Encik Ahmad Taufik.
Right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Taib. It's a pleasure for me to be with everybody today. Firstly, I would like to welcome our webinar participant to the first inaugural Cyber Threat Intelligence webinar hosted by TM1, the business solution arm of Telecom Malaysia. Are we listening a double voice or what?
We are okay, Taufik. We are okay.
So we are proud today to collaborate with EclecticIQ, the leading provider of global DTI solution, and Sdn Bhd, Malaysian trusted cyber intelligence solution provider for this webinar. So as we know, TM1 is the business arm for TM Group when it comes to end-to-end solution. We started the cybersecurity team back in 2004, and we have got more than 100 experienced people in various fields of security, from the basic level of device security all the way up to cloud or data security related to today. What we have today is our guest speaker, IR Shanuri, Muhammad again, is the CEO of NACSA, National Cybersecurity Agency. And also we have Yop Thomas, who is the CEO of EclecticIQ, subject matter expert, who will share experience today. So they will share their insights on the current landscape and what are the steps we take to protect and secure our business. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we have passed more than 70 days of our MCO, COVID pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. So it stretches from MCO, CMCO, and we find organization and institutions are getting used to the word of new normal. There are many businesses out there are thinking ways to evolve, respond to this pandemic in the long term. Case in point, this session was initially planned as on-ground event prior to the pandemic, but has since then evolved to a virtual gathering for all of us today. As what has been stated in the WhatsApp from all of us, security or digitalization is no longer being led by the CEO, but it is being led by me. So, working from home is now becoming a norm, a new norm to all of us. Organization has to be prepared to get themselves covered from all potential risks when the amount of access given staff to organizational servers or applications remotely. I think security is paramount on top of the new norms practicing today. As organizations continue to move to be more agile on cloud-based solutions, indicators of compromise, which is IOC, are also changing. Thus, the impact of cybersecurity to an organization goes beyond the classic bounds of the technical computer domains, move to the access to data, to the linkage to the email account, web application, documents which have been shared in a variety of platforms, be it on the fixed or mobile devices, and the need to reinforce the organization and their data sovereignty. Now, if you look at it more than ever, organization need to review its cybersecurity related services as data is not just confined to a building or corporate offices, even if other security measures are in place. Staying up to date on the nature of threats is still very critical for securing your network or securing the important data that belong to the organization. Large enterprises specifically are very, very vulnerable to threats on cybersecurity. They are so spread out. In our case, telecom Asia, we got offices or buildings, more buildings. Then we allow access from multiple ways of staff is working, access the data of the corporate office. So it is possible that it might not be aware one of their departments have been hit until it is too late. So I would say prevention is need to get this thing earlier before you reach to a level it cannot be controlled anymore. Traditional network monitoring will need to evolve to be into more kind of endpoint monitoring, just device location. So this is just to ensure that cyber protection from every possible angle and control over the control premise devices that are given access to the corporate environment. Ladies and gentlemen, again, our organization, M1, our Security Operations Center, has evolved towards more advanced SOC, known as cyber, no longer as typical SOC that we have invested excess of more than 50 million the cyber SOC to provide the service more than hundreds of customers, addressing from a basic to more complex solution that we have. We have more than 20 ready complex products which we are offering to the end user. So I hope you will find today's webinar beneficial and insightful on knowledge sharing to customers, and also to customers, generally all Malaysians, just to be aware the potential of cyber attack that can intrude not only organization, possibly intrude into the personal space of an individual. So before I end, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your time, and I hope the session is insightful and useful, beneficial to the organization, and we welcome with open arms those who are not our customers, those who are not our partner, to be our partner. With that, I end my opening remarks. So enjoy the webinar. Assalamualaikum.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Encik Ahmad Taufik Omar, for your concise opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now our pleasure to invite R. Muhammad Shah Noori bin Muhammad Zain, CEO of NACSA, to present on the national strategy for effective cyber situational awareness. Please welcome Encik R. Muhammad Shah Noori, CEO of NACSA.
Thank you, Mr. Taik. First of all, I would like to thank TM1 for inviting me to these sessions. I appreciate, and I'm glad to be here. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon to all the participants, and good afternoon to my colleague here, Mr. Yo. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you here in online. Though I'm not so comfortable in this kind of sessions, these new norms that we need to practice anyway. So, okay, first of all, I would like to introduce NACSA to everyone before I proceed to my further presentation. So, NACSA was established in February 2017. It is a national lead agency in cybersecurity matters, which the main role of this agency is to formulate and coordinate the implementation of policies, strategies, procedures, etc., for us to undertake any strategic measures in protecting our cyberspace. So we are the main agencies. We come up with the policy and procedures, and we coordinate the implementation. So with the vision of to establishing a stable and safe and resilient cyber environment in the country. So this is a very important agenda, as mentioned by Mr. Ahmad Taufik just now, and also the issues that was highlighted by Cik Tai. So again, for now, what we did since 2017 is implementing our current national cybersecurity policy. We are developing a new strategy, call it Malaysia Cybersecurity Strategy, which is already approved by government. We plan to launch it in March, but unfortunately, this situation happened, so we need to reschedule our launching. So we plan to launch it in July if the Prime Minister agree. So basically, this the role of NACSA. So I'd like to share what Mr. Tai highlighted just now, is the overload of threat information. So as mentioned by Mr. Tai just now, there is a lot of alerts coming in, especially during these COVID-19 sessions. As presented on the slides, 26% of Malaysian organizations receive more than 100 alerts a day. And globally as well, there are roughly 50% of overlooked threat information, and then 50% that is investigated and remediated. So there are a lot of alerts that we do not attend to. So is what I'm going to share about the importance of cyber intelligence. Yeah. So when there are so many alerts that we receive, do we share the slides with them? When we have a lot of alerts that we receive at the organization level, our security team is alerted, but they need to know if it is an actual threat or merely a false positive. So by having threat intelligence, will give our team more insight into what they need to be addressed, improve their response rate, and allow them to focus on what actually matters to the organization. So this will not only enhance their efficiency in handling those alerts and minimize the workload as well. So also cut down the need of more staff in managing the threats. And threat intelligence as well is about gathering and analyzing the data or the reports that we receive. The data, the information, etc. So it is indicators of the past, current, and future threats, which enables an organization to take action appropriately. So the key word here is analyzing. The ability for the organization to analyze. So cyber threat intelligence is now, as mentioned by Mr. Tab just now, is a change of security approach from reactive to proactive. So it brings us a proactive defense against any cyber threats that emerge outside our landscape before it comes to us. So this cyber threat intelligence or these reports or alerts, advisories should be relevant, punctual, and actionable. So we may receive data, we may receive information, but it is actionable. So that is the role of threat intelligence. Okay, this or we call it CTI, cyber threat intelligence. It provides the organization a deep understanding on what's happening outside, as I mentioned just now, and what should be done for us to handle those risks. So it is important for us to have an effective defense. So for us to prioritize action to be taken by our team. So so we can determine what to do first and what to prioritize and so on. So it is important for the organization to know, with this intelligence information, to know what is important and what is not important, what to prioritize in handling those threats. So with this information or intelligence information, it can lower our overall expenses actually and save our business capital because it improves our defense, which help and mitigate the risk. So in the aftermath of data breach, for example, the enterprise not only suffers data loss, but it also has to bear with many costs like post-incident remediation and restoration, lawsuit fee maybe, investigation expenses, etc. So if in terms of cost and the why we should invest in this initiative, because to me it is less cost rather than after you have experienced the attack. And it is also by doing this, by applying the threat intelligence in your organization, it will lower the risk of the organization as well. And as I presented just now, it will maximizing staffing. You know what to do. You can plan the risk of the threats coming into your organization. So The important thing that I want to highlight here is about threat intelligence sharing. There is one of the main agenda in our coming strategy, where how we want to share information, the cyber threat sharing information, which may be relevant to certain organizations. So we will have a series of engagement after this to specific target groups in the aspect of threat intelligence information sharing with certain specific groups. So another point that I want to raise here is the good intelligence rely on a broad range of sources. The broader information that we get, the better intelligence that we can get. So that's why I will share after this what we plan to do, and to get broader information, to get broader coverage of information, so that we can have better intelligence results. So this include before, during, and after the incidents or after the attack. So in this area as well, we need to improve our security skills at the national, sectoral, and organization level, and the engagement between all the communities to ensure that we have the same level of skills nationally. So in this slide, I would like to share that for those who do not know the establishment of National Cyber Coordination and Command Center, it is a center that was established in 2016. It is a central coordination and command facilities, which is responsible for managing cybersecurity incidents to mitigate, prepare, and response. And what we did was, when we receive reports, we analyze and assist the agency in mitigating or handling those attacks. So we have the portal for now. This portal, the more information in this portal is shared with all the critical national information infrastructure agencies, which we have more than 300 agencies now, which can access to this portal. But there are a public page as well that you may visit. But in future, we would like to engage with all all parties, including business and industries. So for now, we only connected to 4 main security operation center in the country. One is MCMC and Network Monitoring Center, Cyber Defense Operation Center in Minda, Cybersecurity Malaysia, and also we have a GITN Security Center who monitors the government network. So what we planned in near future, in the implementation of our new strategy, to enhance the capability of NC4, to have the ability for threat hunting, for example, to produce a good cyber intelligence capabilities and share with all the parties, so that we can mitigate the threats earlier. So next, this is the example of the threats or the incidents that happened during this COVID-19. So there are a lot of incidents happen. We have thousands of attempts to government networks and also to banking networks. There are 2 sectors that are the main targets for these criminals during this COVID-19 period. So these are among the incidents that you can share, and we produce advisories and share with others, so that other agency can carry out early preparedness for the organizations. So there are attempts which is targeted attacks. So for example, to banking sector, so we can share the analysis with other banks, so that the preparedness is done earlier. to mitigate earlier. So I support this initiative for the organization to have the cyber intelligence capabilities. The vendors, they are very various level of vendors who may say that they can offer cyber intelligence capabilities, but it is varies from normal technical information to in-depth information. So we need to evaluate that to have a right vendors to subscribe to. But anyway, we have a specific plan in our new strategy so that we can handle it better. So the approach is in implementation of our new strategy is to carry out initiative together, approach of nationwide approach, not only the whole government approach, but nationwide approach, which we would like to collaborate with business experts outside to ensure that our cyberspace is better protected. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for this session. Maybe I'll answer more questions during Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ahmad Shanuri Muhammad Zain, CEO of NACSA, on the presentation. I think prevention is always better than cure, and the cost of prevention is always less than how much that we're going to spend curing an incident. And a holistic approach of basically mitigating these cyber threats, cyber attacks are very, very important, not only from the government as well as public and private sectors. Okay, with that, now let's welcome Mr. Yop Hamas to present on lesson learned implementing intelligence-led security. So please welcome Mr. Yop Hamas.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I think, first of all, thank you also previous speakers for these great insights, and thank you all for joining. I hope you're both safe and healthy. My name is Yop Hamas. I'm the founder and CEO of EclecticIQ. We build technologies and we help organizations to build their intelligence practices. Previously, I was with Eyesight FireEye. I think combined, we have experience in helping about 100 organizations, government or enterprises, helping to set up what their intelligence practice really means and how it provides value to them. And in that journey, we've learned many lessons on how to implement intelligence and what to look out for, what brings success, what's a common pitfall. And in this presentation, we'll be first providing you a little bit of the backstory. Why is intelligence important in cybersecurity? And then what are the lessons learned as you implement cyber threat intelligence as a practice in your organization or as you collaborate with a managed security service provider partner that is maintaining this practice on your behalf. So starting with the backdrop, I think if you look currently at the ecosystem, we see breaches remain stable in the sense that we're not making a dent. I think there's still fair stability in terms of how many breaches we see globally, but then the nature of those breaches seems to be changing. On the one side, complexity seems to go up, larger attack surfaces, more consolidation, different types of attacks, but also the type of attacks being more espionage or warfare related, meaning nation state resources are being brought to bear on these breaches. And that knowledge is proliferating, is being shared amongst electronic crime as well. And you see that the cost of cybercrime is increasing. So even though breaches are stable, the cost per incident seems to go up globally. Both government and enterprise are responding to this. On the government side, as the gentleman was just explaining, we see a few different trends on how governments intend to support their ecosystem in this problem through the use of intelligence. On the one side, you see national governments taking, let's say, ownership of central information gathering and distribution on behalf of their critical infrastructure or on behalf of their civil population. On the other side, you see national governments and critical infrastructure not just exchanging information, but closely collaborating. You have to imagine that mostly the same threats are faced in isolation by most organizations. And the role of managed security service providers, the role of government, and ultimately the role of enterprises themselves need to include close collaboration to make sure that those same problems are not faced in isolation. Government initiatives that we see around the world, for example, are legislation or collaboration between member states, or national detection network and national portals, as we just saw with NACSA, which is a great initiative, or setting up of more sector-specific sharing constructs, CERTs or ISACs, or other sharing mechanisms. So problem is getting somewhat greater, but national defense agencies are stepping in to support. But not just national defense, we also see enterprises step up in intelligence use in the context of cybersecurity. Specifically, we see the use of intelligence as a construct inside many different security practices inside an enterprise. You have to imagine an enterprise might have security operations capabilities requirements, they might have fraud prevention requirements, they need to do risk management, executive protection, and so forth and so forth. Intelligence through the use of intelligence integrated in technologies seems to enable better use of information about the reality of cyber threat inside the construct of all these different security processes. And in this presentation, we'll zoom in a little bit further on what that really means. Ultimately, it means that we can find threats faster, we can identify what is most important faster. When we respond, it's responding in context, and many more such benefits that we'll walk through further in this presentation. But basically, as a problem is growing, government is acknowledging this and responding, and so is enterprise, with using threat intelligence in cybersecurity consistently. When you think about the practices, intelligence as a practice, meaning people, process, and technology, you see the emergence for the simple reason of bringing reality back in security operations. Previously, we've seen prevention-based thinking, where we're trying to keep the threat out of our organization. Then we understood that that's too high of a threshold to ultimately create business disruption if we try and prevent too much. And so on top of prevention, we need to start detecting things with a lower threshold of detection. So we can see things, but not always stop them, because that would disrupt business. But in order to see things, you need to understand what the threat looks like. Either you know what the threat looks like and you can start to detect it, or you know a little bit what the threat looks like and you need active hunting support to go and hunt for these activities in your environment. And that practice of threat intelligence and applying threat intelligence towards detection and hunting is called a threat intelligence practice. The people and process and technology required to make threat intelligence successful in your security program. So to recap, we see increased sophistication of the cyber threat. We see government driving adoption. We see enterprises adopting globally. Threat intelligence seems to be a must-have component of cybersecurity as a complement to the existing security practices that you have. So as we build and help to build threat intelligence practice at our customers, we've learned a few things that we'd like to share with you. And we'll walk through each of those points in a little bit more detail. But very high over, we say threat intelligence is not just a tool, it's a practice, people, process, and technology. Success is defined by how successful your stakeholders are using intelligence in a consistent way. We have to take note of what intelligence sources and source management really means. We have to make sure that we make realistic steps towards advancement. Ultimately, we want to get into a proactive stance, and standardization is the key to make all of these things happen. And we'll walk through them in more detail. So starting with threat intelligence and how it interrelates with other aspects of security. Threat intelligence as a practice interacts with operational security practices like security operations, to making sure that intelligence goes there in the right time, in the right place, in the right way, to make sure we detect and prevent things when we can. Or when something does happen, to make sure that threat intelligence is informing incident operations or incident response operations, so that when you get in a fight, at least you win the fight through intelligence, or you bring down the time to respond or to remediate. But not just operationally detecting and hunting for, not just responding to cyber threat, intelligence is also a strategic instrument that can help you plan business, help you plan compliancy, help you plan risk management. Ultimately, intelligence means that you're aligning your business against the reality of cyber threats, which creates a return on investment, making sure that the investments that you make are targeted as best against the threats that you're facing. Another key success factor in implementing threat intelligence is making sure that you serve the right user and stakeholder in your organization. And our recommendation would be, not literally, please, but figuratively, slice the elephant, slice the problem, make the problem smaller as you attack it. Intelligence ultimately needs to go to different security practices. What does the board need to know about cyber threats? What does security operations need to know about what cyber threats? What does incident response need to know? Try and understand your stakeholder. What do they need from intelligence? What kind of formats do they require? What are their intelligence requirements? And how can you as an intelligence capability be successful for them? Address them not just one by one, but make sure that they perceive success. If your stakeholders perceive success in using intelligence, you most likely assure the budget and the success of your program. Business stakeholders are important because ultimately they support you, but we see the top stakeholder being the security operations and incident response stakeholder. So if you start anywhere, start with decision makers and security operations and incident response. And as we help customers implement threat intelligence, we've also noticed that intelligence sources, so sources of intelligence that you get or communities that you're part of or commercial sources that you procure, cannot be used as they appear out of the market. A few things we learned there. One is make sure that you have a balanced portfolio of sources. Sources of intelligence that relate to threats that everybody faces, that relate to threats that your sector or your segment faces or your geography faces, or intelligence that you as an organization specifically face, and make sure you have a healthy mix of all those things. But what we've learned is that about 20 to 40% of all commercial intelligence is either outdated or requires further qualification or correction to be valuable to an organization. And that burden must not be underestimated, meaning you need to have analysts yourself, or you need to work with a service partner or a government partner that's ensuring the qualification of this intelligence before you act on it, or you will waste some of the resources that you have internally. And as you process and qualify the intelligence that you're getting out of the market or from open sources, your analysts will learn how to qualify what is good, what is bad, under what conditions, and make sure those lessons go in automation to make sure your analysts can focus on what they do best, which is analysis, not data processing. But most importantly, get this feedback to your sources. Make sure that you do stringent vendor management. Provide them with the feedback of what is good, what is bad, and make sure that you contractually make them improve if they don't abide by the rules that you have for them. But as we said, implementing intelligence is not just about getting sources and understanding your stakeholders and making sure that intelligence from those sources goes to your stakeholders. It needs to go through a practice that you've built, a practice that can analyze, a practice that can store, a practice that can share, a practice that can manage your stakeholders, a practice that can produce intelligence or process intelligence. And as you build up that practice, as you build up that capability, our number one recommendation would be be realistic in your steps of maturity. First, assess your baseline. I think I'm here in terms of maturity in my requirements management, in my analysis capabilities, in my sharing capabilities, in my integration capabilities in technology, for example, for detection. And this is the ambition I have. In a year from now, I want to be this step further, and making sure that that step is realistic will ensure that budget is not given to you once, but given to you consistently. The biggest downfall we've seen, the biggest reason of failure in implementing intelligence has been overambition in trying to build the perfect intelligence practice in a short period of time with a once unlocked budget. Our website has a maturity model to help you guide in this process, but ultimately we recommend use your common sense, make healthy and realistic steps of building or improving your intelligence practice. And remember that an intelligence practice isn't just technology, like appear here on the bottom. It isn't just getting intelligence or having a good intelligence platform to aggregate and analyze, or having orchestration technologies to integrate, or having a partner to manage these technologies on your behalf. And it isn't just the processes of analysis and the processes of hunting. It isn't just the people and having them in-house, but a combination of all those things is what makes up your intelligence practice and what makes sure that you can do the things we described on the previous slide. In terms of getting to a proactive stance, we observe two big classifications or categories of maturity for either yourself as an organization or your partner that you use to help you with the intelligence practice operations. The first step, I'd say, is the basics. It's making sure that intelligence from external sources is used in your organization, which means you get sources and you manage those sources. It means you have technology to store and aggregate and ensure that you have a single place of truth for it. And you have the integrations to the detection systems and to the processes and stakeholders that need access to that intelligence. But the only thing you're doing is making sure that the intelligence that comes in and goes to your stakeholders or to your systems is qualified and of good quality. Maybe some investigation when it makes sense with regards to focus of your resources. But if you want to get into a proactive stance, it's not about receiving intelligence and applying it as it appears. It is about understanding what that intelligence means to you. Proactive stance means you take ownership. I own my threat landscape. I track threats that I know I'm faced, and I'm evaluating my intelligence to see how are these threats really changing. Different words exist in the market for this. We call it threat management, but it really means that you take ownership of the threats that you track on behalf of your organization, or that you work with a partner that tracks it on behalf of your organization. Don't just receive intelligence and apply it. Receive intelligence and understand what it means to you, and then apply it effectively. A very quick technical overview would mean that if you have multiple sources of intelligence and you have a technology to aggregate them, then you ensure that that intelligence gets to the right technologies at the right place. And if you do not have the capabilities to operate such technologies, minimally make sure you have a service partner that has some of these key components that can take intelligence, qualify it, and make sure that they can get this intelligence to the systems that matter to you for detection and prevention at the right time in the right format, and making sure that the intelligence goes to the right stakeholders and the right teams at the right time. Almost getting to the end of the presentation, a few examples. What makes success for an intelligence practice? As you build up your practice, what do you have to think about? One thing you have to think about is standardization. Effective teams need standardization across most concepts. How they analyze, what their process looks like, how they produce reporting or technical reports or technical formats, and limiting the burden of integration, but making sure that there's standardization in technology protocols and standards that are being used. For example, if you have a team of analysts and they perform analysis, make sure they all work from the same analysis techniques. Make sure they have the same training or use the same concepts so that they can understand each other in their analysis and they understand each other's reports as they produce them. But ultimately, it means that you can have a high turnover of analysts as they are hard to retain, but they keep on working in the same way. So one, standardize the way they analyze and make sure they have the same education. Two is standardize how they work, so the process that they follow and the policies that they follow because of that. For example, if you're sharing intelligence, when do you share intelligence? Under what conditions do you do so? How do you tag intelligence for sharing? How does it technically work? How do you enforce some things do get shared, other things do not get shared? Make sure you document this into standard policies, or you agree these standard policies with your partners, and you always operate without exemption on these standard policies. Only then, again, can you have consistency of quality and consistency with high rotation of your analyst pool. Templates are an easy way of standardizing. It seems silly to say this is the template for a report or this is a template for an indicator list, but hidden inside there's interesting suggestions. For example, a template tells you what you're doing. Are you explaining something or are you predicting something? A template will tell you if it's technical information or if it's going to be strategic information. A template will tell you if it's new intelligence, current intelligence, delta intelligence, or if it's trend reporting. Technical integrations require consistency, and so templates are there to make sure that the experience of your stakeholder is uniform and that the experience of your analysts is uniform as to what is expected of them. Especially in a situation where process maturity might still be low, templates are a good way of shortcutting to make sure that quality or perceived quality minimally is of a certain level. So to recap, ensure that you have and understand your baseline, where you are and where you want to go, and make sure that the step in between the two, given the time that you have and the resources that you have, is achievable. If you achieve success, it's highly likely you can take a next step. If you continually delay success, it's unlikely you'll be the one driving that change forward. Success ultimately means not the best analysis, but ultimately means the happy stakeholder. Make sure that your boss or the security operations center or whatever reason you have to apply intelligence, that use case is working, that stakeholder is happy. You can have the perfect intelligence and the perfect analysis, but if it's not useful for your use case, then it's just perfect in a vacuum, but you're not getting the business value and the return on investment out of it. Start with the basics, but try and get to a place where you can be proactive. You can take ownership of your threat landscape. You know what your threat landscape is, and you monitor it, versus you take intelligence and you apply it almost blindly in a way. And standardize everything that you do. The way your people are trained, the way your people share concepts, the templates that they use, the technologies that they use, the processes that they use. So to make sure that they collaborate and communicate as effectively as possible. And with that, thank you. I hope these lessons will help you as you implement a threat intelligence practice, either by yourself or in collaboration with NACSA or TM1. You're on mute.
Yeah. So the question for the speakers, this session, we will pick some of the top questions from the participants to our panelists and also for TM1 to answer. Okay, just to start with from the question, one of the questions is looking at the national perspective, global perspective in managing cybersecurity that require collaboration. I think Ahmad Shah have talked about that, the collaboration requirements. But still, with this collaboration, we have seen increases of cyber incidents, data breaches, and financial impacts to both governments and businesses. So, are we having the right business model for this partnership in countering cyber attacks? And what is the cyber strategy that will benefit both all the stakeholders, public and private, in managing cyber threats? Maybe Ahmad Shah want to start with and then follow up with Mr. Yuk.
Thank you, Mr. Taib. Yeah, very good questions. That the challenges that we face during the implementation of our current national cybersecurity policy, coordination, the understanding of various organizations on the cyber threats. We have very huge challenges, especially from the leadership of the organization, to understand the importance of cybersecurity in the organization. So with that, that's why we come up with a new strategy. So in the implementation of this strategy, we come up with a new ecosystem, improved ecosystem, where this initiative should be top-down approach from the Prime Minister, KSN, and downwards to the CEOs and downwards. Because our experience before is we just work it at the third layer maybe. So the effectiveness is less. So what we're going to come up with our new ecosystem is NACSA is driving all the initiative with partnership with more close partnership with industry and also businesses and experts outside. So we put it in a layer that one is on protecting of critical infrastructure. Second is protecting of SMEs, cybercrime, awareness and education, capacity building, international cooperation, and of course national security and sovereignty. So with each layer, we identified government agencies. Who is the main agencies? What is their role? We need to define the clear roles of agencies, the responsibility of head of departments, and which industry that we want to engage, in what area. And part of that is information sharing. So we want to have everybody to aware of these threats, and we're gonna have we plan to have a series of engagement with all target groups or target groups, industry, government agencies, and so on. And the industry will play a major role in the implementation of this strategy. So this is a new ecosystem going to build, and hope we can, as I mentioned earlier, that we want to have it as a national approach, not only government, whole of government approach. That's what we're going to come up. Hopefully, it meet the objectives.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ahmad Shah. Maybe Mr. Yup, you want to further expand what is the perspective coming from Europe and what are the practices basically that we can follow here in Malaysia?
Thank you. So I think to a large extent, most of the activities of NACSA align with the activities we see being successful globally. For example, the national capability as a fusion center, as a collaborator, and a consolidator of intelligence before it gets to critical infrastructure to make sure quality is high, or to facilitate collaboration, or to act as the regulator. But I think ecosystem trumps all other things, and good to hear the focus is there. Ecosystem top down from the perspective of ensuring accountability and awareness at the right levels, and ecosystem from the bottoms up to make sure that it comes alive, that there's a culture of security, there's a culture of excitement around we're trying to find what is wrong, we're trying to understand what these threats are, and we're actively sharing them. When the barrier to sharing is both facilitated legally, so it can happen, but it's also facilitated by the human connection, it then is where things happen the quickest. So that includes government enterprise sharing, but it also means the ecosystem of capital and startups and technology and facilitation of that. So sounds like well underway.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yup. There are a few questions that I can put it into one because we are running out of time. Concern on the global issues of cybersecurity, where there are incidents actually beyond the jurisdiction of our national law. So from the perspective of cyber laws and the role of the government in supporting the use of cyber threat intelligence, but again, how do we enforce and take action on cyber criminals that is coming from dark web, darknet, or nation-sponsored operation? So there's questions that, for example, especially mentioned from the biggest country in the world, and something that the mandate from of NACSA, you know, is NACSA have the mandate to basically go beyond the boundaries of Malaysia to capture these perpetrators. Maybe Mr. Yup, you want to start first this time? On the because it's a global issue, how do you tackle a global issues on cyber threats and cyber crimes, for example?
So I think trying to stop the flood from happening is always good, but start with making sure you can survive it. So always focus on making sure you can defend yourself. So top down by having the right laws in place, like in Europe, we have the NIST directive that ensures that the government takes ownership of some of these problems, that collaboration does happen, and that information flows as it should within the ecosystem. So I think trying to defend yourself first is always the best step. Trying to, let's say, enforce globally usually is only possible for very small subsets of problems on the crime side, and an even smaller subset of problems on the national security or network warfare side. So I think expectations have to be sufficiently managed there. When you do, the success there seems to be international cooperation on the one side officially, but on the other side through human networks. There's still most places where a lot of these threats originate, especially electronic crime threats. Action is best taken by having good, strong personal relationships. So focusing internally in the country and in the region is important, but having the right ambassadors placed internationally and collaborating internationally seems to be the lubricant required to come to conclusion on enforcing international cases or international enforcement of cybercrime.
Thank you, Mr. You want to continue, Mr. Ahmad Shah, from the Malaysian perspective? Yeah.
Thank you. These are very challenging issues. I have been involved in United Nations platform in discussing for this matter since 2003, and yet we don't have any one agreement on how we want to collaborate. But it seems that some improvement where now we come up with something like not at global United Nations level, but in regional level, in ASEAN Regional Forum member countries, 28 countries, and also ASEAN member states. So we come up with some information sharing platform. where we share information during the incidents, so before and during incidents. So we have some with a bilateral approach, like Malaysia with Australia, Malaysia with Singapore. So that bilateral engagement where we share information on the threats. But currently we just started. But I think it's good at how we can share this intelligence so that we can take action earlier. But this collaboration just started. Though it started discussion since 2003, and now it's some improvement on that. On cyber crime, we are also look into the convention, Budapest Convention. After years of discussion since 2013, we may assign to this convention where we collaborate into the cyber crime investigation process to expedite the process. So we may accede to this convention so that we can have better cooperation between countries in managing cybercrime.
All right, thank you, Masha. I think we are already at 4 p.m. So I just request from our participants a few more minutes to have a few more questions. There are a few technical questions here, but I think we will get back to you on that. There are a few pressing questions here that I need to ask our panelists. For example, you know, the business challenges of investing on security, intelligent-led security that we are promoting today in terms of the cybersecurity operation. Do we want to invest on these capabilities and have the scale and capacity on our own to manage cyber threats? Or we want to work with a partner or having outsourced or hybrid operations? So it's a board decision or the management decision in terms of investing on cybersecurity. There are a few questions asking us, for example, like, do have to have the management to buy on the idea importance of cybersecurity and have the financial resources to invest? So these are all related questions. Please have this view of what is the best practices. Mr. Yup, you want to start this?
Sure. Thank you for that. So I'd say it always starts with taking ownership of the problem, which still means you can outsource or have a hybrid model. But it does mean that you look at how you outsource and the liabilities you still incur yourself, most likely mean that to some extent you governed this problem yourself as well as an organization. But more practically, I think it's about where do you solve a problem as local to where the expertise is as possible. For example, solving nation state intelligence related problems most likely is best done by the nation state. If you acquire intelligence from cybercrime, from crime that's faced by global finance, make sure you connect into a group of finance organizations that share intelligence together. Or if the threat that you're facing is fairly unique to your organization or is fairly unique to the way your technology works, make sure that you add analysis capability that can take this information and put it in context of yourself. Meaning, in reality, it usually is a close collaboration between as small as possible a capability yourself to add on top of the value that only you can provide, and collaborate closely with managed partners that have their local expertise, or intelligence partners that have their substantive expertise, and collaborate closely with industry and government around the sector and around, let's say, larger espionage problems or warfare problems. But without collaboration, this won't happen. Per definition, a hybrid model, I would say.
All right, Mr. Ahmad Shah, you want to add anything on this?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Yu, what you mentioned just now. In my view, it depends on organizations. Like organization, a big organization, who have a very high critical assets, need to have their SOC by themselves. And like SMEs in Malaysia, we have a lot of SMEs, which I think they don't have to have their own SOC, but maybe subscribe to managed services. And all these SOCs, I hope they agree to feed this information to our national center. So we have more visibility and we have more better intelligence. Then we can share with the appropriate parties. So that's what I plan to move forward in managing or implementing our new strategy. Chatai.
Yeah, there's one specific question saying that, again, go back to the mandate of NACSA and the source of authority here saying that the banks normally doesn't want to share incident or security breaches due to reputation. So how NACSA and what are the global best practices on this? I understand in US, for example, there's a law that's mandated that any breaches need to be publicized. So this is a question on, and do we have to mandate that? Mr. Ahmad Shah, maybe we want to have a view on this. In terms of information sharing, how can we share if the organization, for example, like the banks, doesn't want to share because of reputation?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taib. What we experienced, it is more for now based on trust. So we don't have any issues or problems now. Say for example, the banking sectors with us, they did share with us, but we need to protect the information. So when we receive the information from the banks, we analyze and we take the generic information and we share with other agencies, critical agencies. But they don't know the details of the information. But now to handle this attacks, for example, we do it together. So I think that now the trust level is okay between ourselves, NACSA, and the critical agencies, including banking sectors. And for now, how we don't have a specific law yet in cybersecurity. So NACSA now have an administrative mandate from the cabinet to carry out their responsibility, and we also use the National Security Act because we are under National Security Council. So we use that act to implement our responsibility. And in the new strategy, one of this is a second pillar where it focus on law and regulatory. So we plan to come up with a National Cybersecurity Act. Actually, we have a draft, we have a sessions of discussion already. So hopefully the government will agree on a new Cybersecurity Act. We plan to have it next year.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ahmad Shah. Mr. Yop, we want to share with us, for example, in EU, they have a very specific regulatory requirements, for example, GDPR in terms of protecting privacy and collaboration in terms of cybersecurity and ensuring that all the organization, including critical infrastructure, banking sectors to comply with. You want to share with us, the success of this and how everybody is participating on these collaboration requirements.
So I'd say there is value in understanding there's a separation between having to notify a breach and collaborating. And these are put in different laws in most countries where they say you have to notify your government if a breach has happened, so we can all learn from it. But the information is not shared and is not made public. So fear of, let's say, reputation damage is limited because of that. On the other side, there's laws like the NIST initiatives that dictate in order to be a good citizen, because you don't just protect yourself if something with you happens, people around you are affected. In order to be a good citizen or a good country in collaboration with other countries, you have to share, you have to collaborate, and you have to collaborate within your critical sectors. And I say the biggest successes we have seen there are either government-driven, I think following the exact path just described by NACSA, or private-driven, where banks come together in private context and make private agreements with each other. Both seem to be working well, but they're not interrelated, and I would recommend also not to see them interrelated. Good sharing and good collaboration bolsters your security. Notification makes sure that your citizens are protected and they know when their personal information is leaked or breached. But those two things can be seen separately for sure.
All right, thank you. I think there are a lot more questions, but due to the time, we will, do not worry, participants, that we will address all your questions, and we will email it back to all so that everybody will benefit from your questions. I think we will close the question and answers session now because we already past 4 o'clock. Let's we go move to the next one. So when we summarize this, is basically from TM1 point of view is that let's work together towards improving cybersecurity services. Let's improve our capability, our capacity, scalability, and skill set for a trusted digital Malaysia. Make sure that we have growth in our digital economy. We are protecting our digital economy, especially post COVID-19. This is something that all of us need to work with together. Okay, next, when we look at the final closing remarks from all of us here is, okay, on behalf of TM, on behalf of TM and EclecticIQ, Sintech Malaysia and Berhad, I'd like to thank you all for being with us today at Malaysia 2020 Cyber Threat Intelligence Virtual Roundtable. Our appreciation to all for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us here today. I'd like to thank our TM1 CEO and EVP, Encik Ahmad Taufik Omar, our presenters, I Muhammad Shah, Nuri Muhammad Zain, CEO of NACSA, and Mr. Yop Hamas, CEO of EclecticIQ. EIQ and Syntax Malaysia is our co-host and NACSA is our supporting partner. We certainly believe that we have a better understanding on the subject matter of cyber threats intelligence and how this business practices will be the new norm in the managing cyber threats in the digital world. The success in the digital economy is very much dependent on how the organization, all of us, takes on these issues and proactively managing our cybersecurity. Before we close, I'd like to take a few minutes of your time to invite our guest speakers, Mr. Ahmad Shah, to start with you to have some closing words from you. Ahmad Shah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taib. Again, I would like to thank the M1 for inviting me today to give me the opportunity to share a little bit on our national planning and cybersecurity management in the country. And I hope we have more sessions like this in future, so I can share really on our action plan on our new strategy after launching, hopefully by July. So again, Mr. Yop, nice to meet you online. Hopefully we have the opportunity to meet physically later in future. Thank you again, Mr. Taib.
All right, Mr. Yop, your last final words for our audience.
Thank you for that. Pleasure to be here, and it's really great to see the level of engagement with this topic that is it's close to us and myself personally, and to see the kind of commitment going into this. So for sure, thank you to everybody involved, and above all, I think safe and healthy future. Hopefully, we see each other in the months to come.
All right.